So I wanted to make this video for over a year now. I want to take a look at the 40 series card, specifically their CUDA core counts compared in their own generation and then compared to previous generations. So we have the GPU name here, the core name. This is they always have the lower number is the biggest core, and they cut them down as the number goes up. And here's their CUDA core count or shader cores, and that's kind of like how much they can kind of process at one time. And then this is the percent of their flagship card, the top tier card of that same generation. So the 980 Ti is 100%. It's compared to itself, and then the 980 is 72% of the 980 Ti, and that's kind of how it goes down. So we're going to take a look at that today, and then we're going to get into later down the road the differences from the last generation's one card tier higher, because that's kind of how Nvidia likes to launch the next generation. Is the 60 series card will perform like the 70 series card from the last generation, or plus or minus so many percents. But that's kind of what they're compared to. They want to get those people to upgrade. So we're gonna dive into it here, and so we can kind of see that going down the stack, you see the 60 series cards are usually about 35 to 40% of their flagship card. And then the 70 series cards are around 50 to 60% of their flagship card. And then the 80 series cards are anywhere in the 70s to 60s, unfortunately, of their flagship card. And so then these were kind of a lot of standard generations. The 20 series is when they first introduced ray tracing, and so things kind of got wonky. The efficiencies that they had gotten a big boost from here. So we can kind of see that the 10 series was a great generation, but they were able to cut the cores down significantly from their past generation. So we're comparing this core count to the 970 from the past generation, and it was 67% of the CUDA core count, but it actually performed like a 980 did. So they got a huge boost from these cores. Nvidia said they could have put a man on Mars for cheaper than it costs to develop the 10 series generation. The 20 series generation, they did not get nearly as big of a boost from each individual core. So you can kind of see here the 2060, while it was a higher percentage of the flagship card, it had kind of like one for one. It was basically the same core count as a 1070 was, flat across the board. And actually, the 2060 wasn't a bad card performance-wise overall, as we can kind of see by it being a lot high, the highest of any 60 series card. But what happened was it was also $100 more expensive. They kind of brought it into a whole nother tier, starting with this 20 series generation, and then they've kind of continued that moniker before, where the 60 series card here and here used to be a $200 to $250 card, and now we're talking $300 plus $350 for the 2060. So while it had the CUDA cores, the price didn't really make sense, and that's why everybody wasn't really happy with this 2000 series generation, and they had to come in with the super cards kind of at the same price with more cores to add more performance to kind of make up for what their price was selling. Kind of with the exception of the 2080 series, because they just wanted people to buy the 2080 Ti, which was like the king card. Everybody wanted it. It was so much more than the 2080 and 2080 Super, and as you can see, these cards weren't really that much different, where this one got a little bit more of a performance boost, and this one got more of a performance boost than this one did here. But then we can get into the 30 series cards, and man, this was an amazing generation. They added a whole bunch of CUDA cores here. The 60 series kind of got cut down a little bit more, but the sheer number of CUDA cores compared to the last generation was insane. So while these percentages got back in line with these earlier ones, the cores themselves were close to doubling across the board here for a lot of them, or more, with the exception of these first two cards here. So when we look at the 2070, we have a 155% increase in CUDA cores comparatively. and it kind of just goes down across the board. The 3070 was insane. We compare it to the 2080, and has 200% CUDA cores, straight double right across. Like, that's insane. They were able to keep a similar die size in the 104. Actually, the 2070 was cut down a little bit more, but the 2070 Super, this is actually what the 2070 should have been. So the 104 die doubled in size to 200%. And so, like, everyone loved the 30 series generation, was great value. The prices stayed the same as these series, but we got double the CUDA cores, which is why everybody was so happy of them. And then when we get into the 40 series, we start to see the oddities start to begin here. We have the lowest percentages of the flagship card out of any generation. We can see 18% of the 4060 is of the 4090. Like, is it? We're talking 35%. We're half. The 4060 got cut in half to what it should have been, CUDA core count wise, if we would have kept the same scaling from previous generations. And while we had a 200% increase here, we're talking a 50% reduction here, 70% reduction, 67% reduction, 75% reduction from the previous generation's one tier card higher. And so these numbers right here they're awful. They're the lowest out of any one of these, any of the 70s and 60s and series cards. These are the lowest numbers that we've seen here, and that's why people are upset that they decided to increase the prices of most of these cards, and we got the lowest amount of CUDA cores from the flagship card that we've seen to date. That's why this generation is ripe for super cards to come in, just like the 20 series is. And we're seeing some very substantial rumors of a 4080 Super and a 4070 Super, and then I would assume kind of down the stack as the remaining 3070s and 3060s finish selling out. So what had happened was, in this generation, Nvidia was producing cards like the mining boom was going to continue, and then when it crashed, they were left with a mountain of 30 series cards. And so they weren't just going to... Nvidia is not really the company to offer steep discounts and fire sale all their cards. So they launched piss poor 4070 cards or 40 series cards to fall right in line with the previous generations. And then they could mark down the previous generations ever so slightly. People were like, oh, I'm just going to buy the previous generation because they're a better value. And then once they sell out of all these, they'll actually produce the super cards that are much closer to what they should have been all along. And unfortunately, AMD, which could have come in and just and dumped on Nvidia's parade here, were kind of in the same boat. They're sitting on a mountain of 6,000. Their 6,000 series cards, and so their 7,000 series couldn't offer that much more value if they didn't want to like sell all these out. And so, unfortunately, AMD decided to go the same route as Nvidia. Not quite as bad, but that's why the 40 series are very mid. They're very everyone. That's why a lot of people are disliking them or hating on them, saying that they're terrible cards. If you bought a 40 series card, a lot of the performances are solid. They're just, it's not a generational leap for the price that we've been seeing in past generations, and that's why everybody's upset with these cards. So if you bought one of them, like, they're great cards. They're extremely power efficient because of their cores were able to be cut down so much, and they still perform like the previous generation. They just sip on power and stay cool at the same time, and so they really are nice cards. Everyone's just has a problem with the price. They should have, as they launched today, they should have seen a price reduction, or we should have got more CUDA core cards for the same price. And so that's what everybody's taking issue with. I just kind of wanted to lay it out in a chart so everybody could see why everyone's so upset with 4000 series right now, and why we're going to see super cards slot in that are a lot closer to what they should have been all along. So please like and subscribe, comment if you have any questions. I'll try and answer any comments or questions down there. So thanks for stopping by. Stay nerdy.